Happy October, guys and girls. I am here with my mate Ray Turner, and today we're going to talk about the original Evil Dead from 1981. And that's the point where I get to make my guests feel like really old, because I was only 1 year old when this movie came out.
Yeah, and I was a teenager.
You're a teenager already.
I remember it coming out. I vaguely remember the furore, really, because it was one of the banned videos.
Oh, right, from the...
Like, there was I can't remember how many there were, but there was like these videos got classed as video nasties, and I think this was But
yeah, I think you're right, actually, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Keith. This was my first time watching it.
I did, because...
Oh, right, yeah, no, I'd never seen it before.
Yeah, so what happened is I asked Ray for like ideas of movies we could review, and this was one of the ones he came up with because it was a first time watch for him. But I seem to remember you saying you've seen the second one.
I have. I've seen Evil Dead 2, and there is a 3, isn't there? Is there a 4? I don't know.
Well, okay, so starting a franchise off here, but there was a trilogy originally, which Sam Raimi did all of, and then more recently, there's been in 2013, you had another movie called Evil Dead, which was kind of a mix of like, sort of, I don't know, kind of like a soft reboot and soft remake, if you like. It wasn't exactly a remake, but it kind of had some of the pointers, some of the trademarks. It was kind of doing certain things that were referenced in the original, but it wasn't a direct remake. And then a couple of years ago, you had another movie called Evil Dead Rise. And we did that on the channel. Me and Rachel did that. That's the only Evil Dead I've reviewed on the channel. So we're going.
Okay, well, I've only seen Evil Dead 2. It's like a film, although I don't really remember it very well, to be honest. So I remember there's a scene where he starts smashing plates over his own head because he's
this is good old Ash, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
this was Sam Raimi's debut film, of course, feature debut. And it cost just $375,000. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and I googled it. My research consisted of going on Wikipedia for about 10 minutes. Apparently, it made $29 million.
It did, yeah. That's the figure I've got. That's amazing.
That's quite a return on your money. So yeah,
because I think I read that initially it didn't do very well, but it was upon getting reissued at the cinema and the cult following building up, then they actually started doing much better and more people seeing it. And yeah, I mean, I think we're in that sort of era, aren't we? The sort of late 70s, early 80s, where independent cinema and horror being a big example of that was really...
Horror was a big deal at that point because I think because it was like the birth of VHS and home videos, and so teenagers were spending nights in with their mates and their girlfriends and boyfriends and that sort of thing, and hiring a film from the video shop. I don't know about in America, but in England, that's what that's the impression I got anyway. It's certainly what we were doing a bit, and. Kind of, you'd go around to myself, and invariably, horror was the thing that teenagers like. There's not invariably, but often, horror is something that teenagers typically like.
Yeah,
and I mean, in this country, I think the fact that it got banned probably helped it enormously to become popular.
Something which you're told is, don't see this, you're more likely to want to see it. And it becomes more valuable. It becomes the thrill of trying to see it, even if it is in a crappy sort of version. The movie that really made The Cabin in the Woods famous, it introduces us to a young Bruce Campbell. As I said, he has become one of the great horror icons, the Ash character, and this is how it all started. We've got the iconic Book of the Dead, and very typical... simple premise where a group of students go away for a relaxing weekend at a cabin in the woods, and they come across an old recording and also, as I said, the Book of the Dead, and they unwittingly unearth it, listen to the recording, and all sorts of undead demonic chaos ensues. So that is the basic setup for Evil Dead, in case you've never seen it. Now we always do kind of non-spoiler impressions before we go into the actual movie and some of the scenes. So on the off chance you've never seen that and seen it, and I think for horror fans it's probably a small minority who haven't seen it, but just in case you haven't, we'll start with some non-spoilers thoughts. So this was a first-time watch for you. So what did you think of Evil Dead?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised, actually. I thought I would kind of sit there kind of going, yeah, oh, that's good. Yeah. But actually, I was genuinely quite tense. And I suppose it's that sort of, I don't know. I suppose I'm used to these things being done by a sort of director who wants to kind of make a name and, you know, just loves horror, blah, 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 which I think is what it was, except that director was Sam Raimi, and of course he's actually very good.
Yeah.
And he's proved himself to be very good, not just in horror, you know, in sort of, I mean, obviously Spider-Man and stuff, but you know, things like A Simple Plan, and, you know, he did sort of a thriller, and he's actually he's very good at building tension. And it was the sort of right level of ludicrous plot that was kind of funny and being genuinely quite tense. I was genuinely like, you know, in times, and it's been a long time since I've, you know, especially films from that era, I think, where they do just, and this had a phenomenal amount of gore in it. I mean, to the point where it was slightly funny.
Yeah.
You know, it went so over the top with it that it was kind of funny. But it didn't, that didn't become the reason for it to exist, which I think is what happened with a lot of films from that era. I'm saying this as somebody who's not really a horror fan as such. I'm just kind of a fan of films, and so I like some films and I don't like others. Some of them happen to be horror films. You're more of a kind of actual horror fan, I think.
Yeah.
So, but no, I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it. I think it did run out of steam after about an hour. It basically, the setup was great. The initial sort of, you know, the first kind of kill was great, which it's debatable whether it's a kill, but you know what I mean. The first couple were great, and then like, okay, I've got the point now. I want it to end.
Sure.
And so I think about the last 20 minutes, it just dragged a little bit. I mean, I've certainly seen worse. I suppose it became a kind of bloodfest. That's when it became about the gore and about the just about sort of making you go, oh, you know. It was like, that was the last 20 minutes really. But it you know, I mean, it was enjoyable enough that I sat there and it carried me through. But the first hour, I think, was pretty amazing, especially when, you know, the lack of budget was screaming out at you. I mean, you couldn't ignore the fact that this was a cheap film. But then sometimes that's a good thing, you know. I think about films like Carnival of Souls and stuff, where, which I assume you've seen.
I have seen.
Yes. Yeah. Which is just in case people haven't, I think it's from the 60s, is it?
Yes.
And it's a very, very, very low budget horror movie. And it's the only film this guy made, Herc Harvey. He died, I think, after he made it. And it's got a similar sort of, not a similar vibe to this film, but the similar sort of idea of you think this guy's actually got actual talent. He's not just filming stuff that's nasty and horrible and spooky. He actually really knows how to sort of tell a spooky story and make it tense and make it spooky. And with that film, again, the lack of budget is screaming. You know, it's like you cannot ignore the fact that, you know, the actors are speaking and there's no sound coming out, and then they shut their mouth, and then you get the dialogue and things like that. I mean, it's you know, it's, and it's kind of a shame. You sort of think, I would love to have seen this guy work with a, you know, maybe not a huge budget, but, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, you know, you kind of go, well, and they were good when they had no money, but now they can do anything they want. They stop being imaginative. I don't know. But sometimes it works really well. I think with Sam Raimi, it did work really well. You know, he did sort of go on to make good films. And he's he's interesting. He's a visually interesting director. And I mean, he built the suspense nicely, I think, and there was, and it had the right level of sort of, you know, I mean, I think he was very definitely referencing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, wasn't he? When they go into the cabin and there's bones and saws hanging off the wall and that sort of thing. Have Eyes poster, which I
was going to bring that up.
You know,
do you know the story behind it?
I think I do, because I listened to the director's commentary.
Before we move on, should I just tell the Hills of Eyes story? Just because.
Oh yeah, we should. Yeah, because that's.
I'll just make sure it lines up with what you heard. But so there's a rip poster of the Hills of Eyes at one point when I think it's Scott goes into the basement. And this is apparently because Wes Craven had a torn poster of Jaws in the Hills of Eyes. And he told Raimi, Jaws is just a pop horror. What I have here is real horror. So Raimi included a torn poster of Craven's film as a cheeky way of saying, no, pal, this is real horror. Is that basically what you've got? Basically,
I think that the only thing that seemed to be different was that it wasn't something that I've forgotten his name, not George Romero.
Wes Craven.
Wes Craven. It wasn't something Wes Craven actually said. It was more that was how,
just like a thing.
Just interpreted it as like saying, oh, you know, Jaws is pop horror, and then he kind of said that they were kind of making a statement that, you know, actually The Hills of Eyes is pop horror compared to this.
Yeah, and I guess that makes it even more funny.
Kind of dig rather than a
like just a playful little dig.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know if Wes Craven kind of then retorted in his next film. Like, I'm not sure if he did, but that would be fun if they kept it going for a little while.
Has Raimi done any other horror films? Has he done any other apart from
He did Drag Me to Hell, which was another kind of similar to Evil Dead, and that's a more recent one. But no, he definitely moved on because obviously he got his big mainstream break doing the Spider-Man movies. The Maguire ones.
Well, like I say, he did this film called The Simple Plan, which is a very good film, actually.
That's a really good film.
It's kind of thriller, and he did a western with Leonardo and that was pretty good, called The Quick and the Dead. I remember enjoying it. And I think he has a small part in Miller's Crossing.
All right,
like a cameo.
Is Joan Cohen of the Coen brothers. Yeah, Cohen. He is the assistant editor on this movie, so giving him
he's credited again on the commentary. The impression I got was that he actually did edit quite a lot of it himself. A lot of the action fight sequences and stuff like that were edited by Joel Cohen, and him and Raimi struck up a friendship, and because of the way that, because Raimi financed this by making a Super 8 film called Into the Woods or something. Not Into the Woods. Okay. Even sometime, but
very different. Something like that, anyway.
Yeah, I could check it. So, but anyway, he made a Super 8 film, and that was how he got the money. And it inspired Joel Cohen to kind of go, well, I could make this feature film that I want to make then, and that's how him and Ethan Coen made Blood Simple. You know, and so my impression was I was pleasantly surprised. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I think there was an element of I kind of feel like I should watch it just as a sort of film fan because, you know, it's a significant
one to tick off. Yeah, it's one of the biggies.
And I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Would it have been better if the makeup had been better? You know, because I mean, some of it was obviously rubber. You know, rubber.
Yeah. I think you obviously have to put it in context for the time. because you can always look at older movies and say that that sort of thing is now much better, but when you're working on this sort of a budget, like, I think it's quite good for the era. And
I think it's the time. I think it is the budget. I mean, it's like, there's clearly, like, rubber, and some of the animation is, clearly animated. I mean, some of the stuff. Like,
I mean, I think they get away with it because of what the film is, like the gimmick,
I do. And I do wonder, if it was done more slickly, is that a word? If it was more slick, if it would have, it might have actually not been so, it would have lost its edge,
Well, because one thing I was thinking, like, is definitely that there's a charm to it, the way they do it, but also, like, at times it makes it a little bit more trippy and, like, unnerving, like, oh, this is weirder than if maybe it looked more convincing. And I think also at times it just reminded me a little bit of pop art, a little bit, and I quite like that about it. I'm not
okay.
I'm not quite sure why. There was just something about it, and there's something about the appeal of, like, this old school practical effects where you can almost see the craft go into it, and the fact that it's, I don't know, it's on that line between looking like really good and convincing, but it still has, like you say, this rubbery sort of artificial quality, but it doesn't really go too far either way. And I think that's why it works. Like, it works for the film, but it also leaves things that are open for, like, the imagination a little bit, maybe.
Not too much.
One thing I liked as well, just picking up on some of, like, how the film was done and the design, is I just love how basic the Book of the Dead is in this first movie. I just love that it's just, like, hand drawn and things like that. And I mean, just thinking about later movies, I would imagine that they would use effects a little bit, or they would make it look a little bit more fancy. And I just
it's done in pencil, isn't it? It's not, he's done it in sort of ink and that sort of thing.
And I love that because I don't know the story behind it, but I could imagine just that maybe an artist friend of Sam Raimi's might have just done it.
Oh, well, I think it was the makeup artist who was also the production designer. I mean, it was quite good listening to the director's commentary. I didn't get the whole film. I only watched it last night. But you do get a sense of just how little budget. The scene where they're sitting down to eat. There's one scene right at the beginning. They're all eating. He said they couldn't afford the food to feed. He said, they kind of got a few bread rolls and some, like, juice or something, and that was kind of it. They couldn't actually afford food.
Right.
And it was like the guy who. I think I might have got this wrong, but I think they said the makeup artist was also the production designer, or as much as they had a production designer. I mean, he was kind of more of an art director type thing, just moving stuff around and fashioning things in certain ways. And he was also a very good artist, and so he drew the clock that the girl was drawing at the beginning.
Okay. I must have heard that a while back because that did ring a bell. And it makes sense when you watch the film. I mean, I really like it as well. It's been a while since I've seen it. I've seen it a few times, but similar to you, I think just some of the down and dirty, like, grungy DIY feel to it really appeals. I like the fact it is only 85 minutes. I think that's almost like the perfect running time for it. And it just has a charm of this, where it's such a simple premise and they just get you into it so quickly and so simply, and almost just like the idea of using, like, the eerie kind of radio message or recording that they listen to as a way of cutting around exposition without you having to spend too long setting it up. It's quite a clever way to naturally just do that. As you said, kind of having these really over the top farcical type moments. But at its core, it still works as a horror movie. And that's something which Evil Dead 2 took to a different level is the slapstick stuff. That became more sort of slapstick, and it's in that movie where the Ash character really became like the icon that he is now, because you get little teases here of what he might become in later movies, but at this point they obviously had no idea about what he would become and things like that. And it just works as a very good basic horror movie, but they're definitely dancing around the more insane, over the top moments, which are like farcical and cheesy a little bit, but in a fun way. And I think,
sorry.
Well, just because Raimi has that quote, doesn't he, where he sort of calls this like his answer of like a silent slapstick movie, but except he took out the custard guns and added like gore and guts and what have you, which is
I didn't know that. No, is that what he
said? Yeah, that's kind of how he pitched it in a way. And I think, as I said, Evil Dead 2 goes even harder on that stuff. But yeah, I do like how this just works as almost a back to basics, like Cabin in the Woods type thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a ludicrous plot, you know, which is fine. You know, it's kind of to have a plot that ludicrous, you need an element of slapstick. You know, you need to be able to just kind of go, I know this is silly. It's like, but I think it's interesting because I think with that kind of budget, you've still got to get people involved, so that they're still invested, despite the fact they know it's kind of, you know, prosthetics, and it's not like. And I think that's where a lot of low budget horror doesn't work, because you've got very obviously bad special effects and stuff, but you're not involved. It's like you are watching gore. And here, I think, I mean, actually, because the performances were quite good, which is unusual for very low budget horror. Again, I keep thinking about sort of things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the guy in the wheelchair, who you're just willing him to be killed because he's so annoying, and he's such a bad actor, and it's kind of, you know, and that's like a feature of low budget horror, is just bad acting. And here they were not bad. They were, I mean, there was a few bits that were obviously dubbed, but they weren't too bad. The actors were pretty good.
And I think for that level, like the budget and the fact it is a first time feature, they're solid. Like, you buy them as a group of friends, and like, you know, I think, like, it's definitely not the really bad end. You know, it's almost like rough in quite a natural way. Where.
So what do you remember what it was like when you first saw it? Do you remember your impression when you first saw it? Or...
I don't think so, because I think because of my age, because, like, as I said earlier, I was only one when it came out. So, I mean, probably when I first saw it, it was probably just on TV. And, you know, I have fun memories of that, because it's the days when I had a TV in my bedroom. So it's quite nice late at night just to put on a horror movie on TV or something. But I think with a film like this, it probably takes 2 or 3 viewings to really get into it and really get more out of it. And it's probably just that thing of, as you become more of a horror fan, you sort of appreciate it even more, I think. But so I don't have that much memories of first seeing it. Just then, obviously, I knew the reputation and
because we both come at it then knowing the reputation, sort of, even though this is my first time, so I can sort of say, well, my first time watching it, I came at it knowing and the first time you saw it, you knew of the reputation, and now you've seen it.
Yeah.
Second or third or fourth. Did you expect to like it, do you think?
I don't know, because I was pretty young, and I think it was quite early into me being a horror fan, so I think in a way I didn't really think too much about it. And as I said, I think it was probably one where I watched it and I would say I quite liked it, but at the time I wasn't really blown away. And I think it's just this thing of, over time, when you start to hear things about why it's quite an original movie, why it was unique for the time. I think you just start to appreciate it more. It's around the era where you're getting this kind of trade of like obnoxious kind of characters. But one thing I always appreciate about 80s horror movies, like this isn't a slasher, but slasher is kind of the main thing that I think of with this. But you obviously get this sort of gimmick of like a bunch of obnoxious teens. And I mean, it's that thing of a little bit which Halloween started, but then other movies carried it on, where traditionally it would be the really obnoxious kind of sexist one, or the one which was just interested in sex and nothing else, who would end up being killed like first and things like that. And so, but yeah, I think like you, I thought the characters were quite solid in this. Quite, I thought the three girls were quite likable and quite grounded and sort of proactive. And one thing I took away from it this time is I kind of like the subversion of like the Ash character compared with the other guy, Scotty.
Because Ash was more reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah, and obviously I think early on you see Ash, I think, as more of a nervous, sort of awkward character, whereas the other guy is kind of the more sort of brash out there. He's a bit more ruthless. And so I quite like the fact that over the course of the movie, Ash grows into like his role, and he's ultimately the final guy, if you want to switch.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, I was going to say that was interesting because I think typically in these films, it's a woman who's left at the end. And it's a bit of a shame that I'd seen part 2, because obviously I knew Ash was going to survive.
Yeah.
And I think I was, especially as there was a kind of, an obvious mismatch in numbers. So there was 2 couples and a spare girl.
Yeah.
But then the spare girl was the first one to go. So that did throw. I mean, well, I don't know. I wonder if I hadn't seen the second one, I think I would have been expecting one of the girls to survive, and in fact, probably Ash's girlfriend, because she was the kind of cutesy, innocent one that, she was, and that's the cliche, isn't it? It's the cutesy, innocent one who gets tough towards the end, saves herself.
Sure, because if I had to guess, I think they were just thinking of this as a one and done, and not really thinking about more movies.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that was the case.
But that's why it's so funny seeing Ash in this movie, how different he is in like Evil Dead 2. So I'm assuming then they had no idea. Then it's just them, for whatever reason, they decided Ash was going to be the sole survivor. When they made the film, it wasn't an idea that, okay, we're going to subvert a trope here.
Well,
maybe it was. I don't know, but
I think maybe it was like literally it was just a logistical thing that they, again, with in fact, on the DVD that I've got, Bruce Campbell, is that his name? Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Does a commentary, and his commentary is actually. What I could hear, what I saw of the 2 of them, his one is the more informative, actually, about the actual filming process. And he was he was around because he was kind of one of the original. Him and Raimi and the producer, they were the 3 kind of the sort of the idea, and they were the kind of team that had been together for a long time. And the other one was the girl who, I think she's meant to be Ash's sister. Is the first one that becomes possessed.
Okay. That's the one that's dating Scotty, isn't it? I think.
No. She's the one who isn't dated.
There's like a middle one that doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she's meant to be Ash's sister. I think there's one little reference to it in the film.
Okay.
She's his sister.
I didn't pick up on that.
And she's the one who gets put in the cellar, with the flap. So what's it called? The door flap.
It's very it's very
flap that every house has.
Absolutely. It's very trapdoor, that stuff.
Trapdoor, that's the word.
For people who get that reference. I mean the cartoon trapdoor. The
right.
laugh
No, I didn't
scene.
get that reference.
Yeah. Okay. No, never
Actually,
mind.
speaking of references, apart from the obvious one, when the girl says, "What's wrong with her eyes?" I was thinking, is that a reference to Rosemary's Baby? Is that
Could be. I mean, it's not something I know if it is, but it's possible.
you
With
not seen
Raymond,
Rosemary's Baby?
I've seen it once, but it was a long time ago. A bit influenced by. I know you mentioned Texas Chainsaw. I also got the impression it was a little bit influenced by The Exorcist because of the like projectile vomiting stuff.
Oh, okay.
That felt very Exorcist, and
See, I would have said Night of the Living Dead actually.
okay, yeah,
and the sole survivor being the man, which I think is the case. I mean, he doesn't obviously survive, but the last man.
But he is the last one. Like I was saying about how Scotty was kind of the more ruthless one throughout the movie, but I mean, ultimately, it's his selfish attitude and that he's not a team player that does him in, really.
Yeah, I mean, out of all of them, Scotty seemed the most obvious to die first, actually, and I was expecting that to be the case, and then he wasn't, and in fact, it was quite interesting because all the women get done, and then it's like the two men are left, sort of.
It's like they wanted to. Yeah, I think they wanted to play on the fact that they were obviously like best friends and all the rest of it, and I think it's a little bit of Ash's arc. Then he has to confront these people in demon form because he obviously has to confront his girlfriend at some point, and that's a real thing. And I'll say as well, that actress I thought does a really good job when she goes demonic. I think she plays it quite well.
Well, they kind of go in a interestingly unexpected way with her. I mean, I think I was just expecting more demons, really, and she turns into kind of, well, not Barbie doll. What would you call it? Like a cutesy little hello. Yeah.
I know what you mean. Was she the one? We're jumping all over now, but one of my we are definitely in spoilers now, guys. In case you had any doubt, we're definitely in spoilers now.
Maybe you have to just put
the
like
spoiler war is coming.
Spoiler.
yeah.
Rosemary's Baby spoiler, and then
flashing lights.
Night of the Living Dead spoiler.
No, but one of my favourite scenes is the card scene. Because I just love the way something so innocent like her reading out these cards and the voice slowly going dynamic, just how it slowly becomes creepy, like they take an everyday card game and slowly make it creepy. So
I mean,
my favourite scenes.
And it's sort of there's an element of like, oh, who's suddenly getting the cards right, because she's getting the cards wrong. She's holding up the cards and saying, the wrong number. And so, oh, really? That's amazing. You got it right. And then next one. And then suddenly it's right. And then it's right. And it's right. And it's right. And you're like, oh, she's getting it right. No, it's not even her. It's this other woman, Cheryl, is it?
Yes, Cheryl, yeah.
That was a nice moment of. But the thing I found very funny is obviously you've got this branch comes through a window and smashes the window, and for the rest of the film, that window is now just a window again. It doesn't. It disappears, and there's a bit where he blockades the door, and I'm thinking, but we've seen them smash at least 2 windows already. Blockading the door is not going to help. The smashed windows now seem to be repaired.
Well, because one thing I read, because when I was just looking on IMDb earlier, like one of the things where they have like the goofs type thing is then apparently at some point their hairstyles change, and also apparently, I don't know if this is in one scene or several, but the amount of blood they're gushing changes all of a sudden, and I mean stuff like that I don't really care about, especially in this sort of movie. You can just put it up to like demonic stuff, really. And
I mean on Bruce Campbell's commentary, he was saying they filmed it over like 4 years or something. It was I don't know if that's
So,
quite true. I think that predominantly they were meant to film for 6 weeks and it went on for 12. But then they were kind of going, oh, we need a shot of this. And they would go in, they didn't have that location anymore. And so they would go into somewhere else, which had a similar floor, and they'd get a completely different person. And half the time when they're possessed with all the makeup on and everything, it's a completely different person. It's not the actual actors that.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Bruce Campbell said, they didn't have a hairstylist, or who was worried about continuity. They'd just go to the local barber and sort of say, "Can you give me a haircut?" Like, just either describe it or show a photo. I don't know. But the barber would, depending on how good they were or not, they would cut it, but it wouldn't always match. And also, he said that they got this. The blood was made of syrup, some sort of syrup, and he said it was just everywhere, and to the point that apparently he said he couldn't even wash it out of his hair at night. He was trying to wash it, and it was so thick in his hair he couldn't wash it out, and that sort of thing. So he said his hair just started getting sort of like stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, and then he'd come back like a year later, and they'd sort of say, can you get that haircut again? And he'd go to the local barber and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, continuity errors happen in big budget films too. I mean, it's but there's so much going on here. I mean, thing of, if you're looking at hairstyles, you're probably missing the point of the film, really.
Oh yeah, it's just one of those fun things to talk about. But I think if it was over 4 years, that does make sense. It happens quite a lot in TV shows, and what's funny is like you'll just have like, and this is just an example with like the Star Trek show I've been watching recently, where they literally had a cliffhanger between seasons. So like the characters are meant to be in the same place, like the same spot, the same scene, and yet some of them have different hairstyles.
Well, yeah.
So that's one of those examples.
That's quite common when you get to a second episode of a series, because they've made a pilot and they've had to test it around, and then they've got the money finally, and it's like a year later. Yeah. And they go, well, we're going to now do the second episode, and everyone's hairstyles.
You get what you mean about the end of the film, and like it's sort of losing it a little bit and like becoming a little. But I think what I appreciate is that you build to those moments. Like I think that would be more of a problem if it was like that all the way through the movie. But because you get like at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour of, well, not quite that long.
But an hour. It was an hour.
40.
I was watching on DVD, so I could see the timer. So I could see how long, and it was an hour before I suddenly started going sagging a bit. And it wasn't bad. I've certainly had worse.
But one thing I really like about throughout the movie, and definitely in the setup, is I love the fact that they use like the POV thing a lot. I love like just the way it opens with it like drifting across the woods and
through that swamp.
And also there's kind of after the famous tree rape scene, like this idea that someone is pursuing you or something, but it's just like an entity. And I like the fact that the film plays with that. Like for a lot of the movie, it just plays it as an entity, and then you really get into what it is a little later on. They do stick to the horror tradition of there's a build-up where you get to know the characters, and a lot of it is on suggestion. So in a way, that's why I don't mind the stuff at the end so much, because it's almost like you build to that stuff and then you kind of go crazy, and that's sort of the big payoff. And I think, because I just like some of the little touches, like that shot of the just the wood thing, the thing that's sliding across, and it's almost this idea of, well, is that something? Is that being controlled by demonic forces, or is it just the wind? Well, it's when they first get to the cabin, you get like a shot of, I'm not even sure what it is, but
chair.
I think it's.
And he gets the key, and the chair stops moving.
Yeah, but there's also that wooden thing, like that long wooden thing that's kind of sliding, almost like it's a
Yeah, I think it's a chair. I think it's one of those swing chairs.
Okay, I couldn't tell it was a chair, but
Did you watch it on your phone?
maybe no DVD last night, but
yeah, I think it's a swing chair.
Okay.
And it's
Maybe
it's swinging that way.
It might have been just the way they shot it. I honestly couldn't tell it was a chair. So, so to me, it just looked like something that could be like a sinister type weapon.
The build-up was good because it was effective, and then you kind of get into the kind of gore, which I found much less interesting. But I wonder if I'd seen it at the time, in 1981 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
If it was more different than than it is now, and I don't really know. Do you have? Because you know what I mean. It's like that level of gore was quite extreme, and even though it was obviously some of it was horrid, but I mean it was almost all the more disgusting because it was.
I mean, some of it was quite grotesque because, like we said, vomiting and inners and things like that. I think you're right, though, because it's something you were saying earlier. Then I think films got gorier as like the 80s went on. So I think at the very start of the 80s, it probably was still reasonably tame for that sort of thing.
Think about a film like Psycho, for example. I mean, you don't. You see blood, but you don't. That's it. There's no real gore in it at all. And as you said, Halloween didn't really. And trying to think of other horror movies. They obviously, I don't think Hammer didn't really have a lot of gore.
No, I mean obviously there were early examples where it was kind of a little bit similar to the gore we see in this, where I think, you can tell that in certain scenes it's paint, or you can see that it's a bit of a, the blood is a little too runny, but like I think there's, I mean, just a quick fun trivia thing is the first ever Gore movie, or the movie that's credited as the first ever Gore movie, is a movie called Blood Feast. So
I've seen that.
You've seen that, yeah. I've seen that as well. I saw it a few years ago.
Have I seen that? Is it the one with the hunchback? I can't remember the plot, but
I can't remember the plot. It's so 60s film, and it's from the same guy who did that Wizard of Gore movie, which I think is a little bit more famous. Something like Herbert Marshall.
Oh, Herschel Gordon Lewis.
That's it. Yeah. I think that's
okay. I'm thinking of I haven't seen that then. I'm thinking of a different film. I can't remember. It might be called Blood Rights.
It's just a fun fact because we're talking about this stuff, but it is credited as being the first sort of gore movie. It's from about 64, 65, so it's very early on. And as I said, I think the first time I heard of that director is because there's a reference to him in Juno, because like the Jason Bateman character is obsessed with like Wizard of Gore, which is one of his other movies.
Oh, okay.
But like I think he's just one of those very sort of grindhouse drive-in style directors.
I think someone said Herschel Gordon, or is it Herschel Gordon Lewis makes Ed Wood look like Cecil B. DeMille or something like
that? That does ring a bell.
Ed Wood makes Herschel Gordon Lewis look like Cecil B. DeMille. I'm not sure which way around it went, and it might not have been those two, but it was just a great quote anyway.
You get into the 80s, you're getting closer to the stage where you can have more convincing gore scenes, really. But so
I mean, is it convincing though, or is it just lack of, is it that the censorship got a bit, in the same way that,
well, it's more convincing than it was, and obviously that only got better as the decade went on.
Is that true though? Because I mean, isn't the stabbing in Psycho, for example, a lot more convincing than what you see?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but in a way, you're proving my point, because if they decided to show blood in Psycho, then probably those stab scenes wouldn't have been. Like I think if you don't have the and obviously I'm not sneering Hitchcock, but you know, the budget and everything, and I'm assuming if he could.
Well, Psycho is pretty low budget though.
Well, it is, but
Yeah.
no, but that's my point. Is maybe they didn't have the budget to do that. You know, but
I don't know.
the infrared, for example, like when the blood splatters back at him, stuff like that. There's some really cool shots like that.
Well, actually, again, you know, the director's commentary, the Bruce Campbell, I think, is the one who says it. That when they started touting the film around, some distributor said, you know, there's not enough blood. You need the screen to be dripping with blood, and they took them literally. So they literally had blood splattering on the camera and dripping. You know,
so
is that the bit you mean? Is it when he's chopping up? He's chopping up the woman.
Well, the blood, I mean, is quite late on. I mean, it involves Scotty, but there's also a similar scene with Ash as well.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when it happened.
Yeah. Okay, but
yeah, that was why apparently that's why they did it. They were told make the screen drip with blood, and so you took it literally, and had you know, blood splattering on the camera.
That sounds. I need to listen to that commentary. That does sound like a really good commentary.
So one thing I found when I was watching it was, you know, I thought it was because she had a spyglass. You know, the necklace he gives her is a spyglass, which is an Americanism. It's a magnifying lens. If I'm English, and I thought that was going to be a plot point. I thought they were going to use it to sort of, you know, magnify the sun or something, and they just didn't. But apparently that was the original plan, that they were going to make it have some plot point that it was a magnifying glass.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
So as we're into spoilers, I can talk about the thing with the eyes now. So there's a scene at the beginning when he gives her that, and there's this big close up of their eyes, and they're playing this game. And then later on, he's burying her, and she's pretending to be dead, or, you know, she's a demon, but she's pretending to be knocked out or dead or whatever. And every time he looks at her, she goes back to being asleep. And it kind of mirrored the scene at the beginning with Bruce Campbell and whatever her name was, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite a nice thing. And I thought that's the sort of thing you don't get in kind of low budget horror typically. You know, it's like there's a kind of nuance to that. That's the thing that proper directors do, you know. You know, kind of have a callback to an earlier scene, and you have things like that. And I think that is I think the thing that, not specifically that scene, but you know, that's the sort of thing that I think set this apart. Despite the fact that it's just a kind of, you know, violent gore fest, it's actually got nuance going on that maybe is somewhat subconscious. But, you know, it's like just Sam Raimi is a good director. You know, he knows how to tell a story. Well,
I would definitely.
Apparently, he knew right from the start how to do it. That is a little bit like when they become demons. Some of that became a bit predictable. You could say, well, a hand's going to come through that. You know, they would kind of get into position to get grabbed when they see it, and it was, and it became a little bit kind of, you know, definitely a hand is going to come through that doorway right now, and grab it, and it's going to come up from the ground. And, you know, so I suppose that's why I found the ending less appealing.
Okay.
It did still make me jump though a lot of the time. There was a lot of jumps in it, which is become a bit unfashionable, hasn't it? Jumps have become unfashionable in horror. They're considered a bit sort of, what's the word? I think a bit cheap. You know, a cheap way of, I jumped 6 times in that film. That's great. That's like 6 ticks.
It's, you know, I think it depends, I guess, but yeah.
But sometimes it's nice to have a little jump, and these worked. I mean, often you're kind of going, well, I can see where this is going to come, and it comes and it doesn't make you jump. This, I could sort of see where they were going to come, but they were still making me jump, which was interesting.
Yeah, so it's that happy medium a little bit. Yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. So I think we've done a good job of talking about the movie, so we can sort of start the wrap up stuff now.
Do we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Or
well, it sounds like we're both giving it a thumbs up.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a. I mean, especially in terms of horror films, it's it's a 4 out of 5 compared to.
Okay.
You know, I mean, for me, something like The Shining and Don't Look Now and maybe Alien are kind of up there. They're the 5s. But and the
we'll definitely do. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But this is a kind of 4 compared to. Yeah, I don't know. Compared to The Hills Have Eyes, actually, I didn't.
I mean, I like The Hills Have Eyes, but I would say this is better than that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did see it. I mean, we are talking 40 years ago. I don't remember it making much impression.
In another lifetime.
And
I don't know. It's a pretty disturbing movie, but yeah, you know.
I mean, it might be better if I saw it now. It might feel different.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't really remember it, but you know, but I mean, certainly there was like a slew of, you know, part 2s and part 15s and whatever. They were the definite, you know, 1s and 2s out of 5. So this was definitely not that. And my memory is that the second part was very, very enjoyable. You know, Evil Dead 2 was very, very enjoyable in more of a slapstick way. But the thing I mostly remember is the scene where his hand becomes possessed and he just starts smashing plates.
Yeah, that's a classic. I mean, Evil Dead 2 is often seen by horror fans as one of the best horror sequels. You know, probably one of my favorite sequels in general. So now that we've started off this franchise, I'll definitely be doing Evil Dead 2 at some point and doing.
Well, you need to lend me a copy and I'll watch it. And in fact, I've never seen the third part. So
Army of Darkness, yeah.
I'm intrigued though. What did the remake do? Because it's not really a film you can remake, is it? Because there's not enough story. So it's like you're just basically going, well, kids. They
do it a bit differently. I think it's why I wasn't that keen on it, because they don't sort of commit to one way or the other. Like, because I've only seen it once, which is when it came out, and that's like 2014 now or 2013. So my feeling at the time was, you know, if you go into it and you treat it as, okay, this is a remake of a classic horror, I think if you go into it that way, you come out a bit more positive and you say, well, okay, that was probably better than you would expect. It's probably like a solid kind of 6 out of 10, maybe, you know, around about there.
Oh, right, okay. That's quite high.
Yeah, it's not bad for like a remake of like a classic, but like it's but on the other hand, over time I've maybe soured on it a little bit, because the one that came out 2 years ago, Evil Dead Rise, where they did change things up a little bit again, because that was set in an apartment block and you had a host of different characters. But I preferred that one to like the Evil Dead from 2013. But yeah, this will be a thing where I'll have to now do the franchise, which I'm happy to do. But
I'd happily watch the Sam Raimi ones.
So I mean, I would give it an 8.5, something like that, because I do the 10 scale, but around about 8.5.
10 is better, I think. More numbers are better than new ones.
Yeah.
100 scale, so give it a 62.7.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy October once again. I will have Ray back for another review later in the month, so look out for that. He is the first up. You can let him know how he did in the comments.
Oh God!
And let us know what you think of the original Evil Dead. You can of course support the channel as a patron, patreon.com/boardnow. So a bunch of extra perks, commentaries, early access to things, exclusive clips that you don't get on YouTube. Or you can be a channel member. I'll post that in the description. So 3 different tiers and you get a variety of perks. Some you'll find on Patreon as well. Some will be exclusive to channel members. So that's another way you can help out the channel. Or if you want to help out and just make a one-off donation, there's 2 ways you can do that. You can either do it through the PayPal account, which is linked on the channel, or you can do it just on the video, like just on the super chat button. You can make a one-off donation that way. And just a small little thing, because this is something YouTube has recently added, but if you want to try and help the video get out to more eyes, then they've recently on some videos added a hype button. So it's on the video, you just click it and you get free a week. So you get a certain amount of points that go towards that video. And the idea is that it gets hyped out to a few more people. That's the idea. So that's something. I don't think it's on all my videos, but it is on some of them. So if you see it for this one, then hype it up, baby. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great October. I will link some of Ray's stuff in the description. Some of the stuff people can find on YouTube, like your short films and what have you, and different things. If you want to go and check his stuff out. And I'll be back. I made
a spooky film called Driving.
Driving, yeah, I've seen that one. It's not bad, Ray. It's not bad.
Not bad.
Put that on.
Masterpiece.
A masterpiece.
Masterpiece of modern horror.
you can see for yourself, but I will link his stuff, and we'll have Ray later on in the month as well. I will be here all month with various guests and different reviews. But thank you, everyone. Happy October. Hope you enjoy the month, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Happy Halloween.
Goodbye.
They're alive, Ashley.
I fear that the only way to stop those possessed by the spirits of the book is through the act of bodily dismemberment.
I don't care what happens to her. She's your girlfriend, you take care of her.